Imagine that you're at the theaters right now and you kind of just bought popcorn and you're deciding on your drink. And you know, you kind of think, what am I going to get? And honestly, none of us really think to get water, even though our bodies are 60% water, you know? You would think that you'd crave what your body is made of. And almost every time, you're going to get something sugary, right? Like an icy or a soda. And ultimately, this is because of an addiction that has been carried on through generations. And today, I'm here to talk about the reasons for our increased consumption, at least in the United States, reasons behind it biologically, and what you can do if you realize that you're actually pretty addicted to sugar. So, the University of California at San Francisco has it's a sugar science program, and according to them, the average person should consume 21 grams of sugar if you're a woman, and 38 grams if you're a man. And technically, you're not supposed to go over 70 grams. But nowadays, almost everything in serving sizes is 70 grams of sugar. Usually one drink is twice the amount of sugar that you're supposed to be eating. And the American Heart Association specifically recommends that you don't consume over 71 grams of sugar. So after extensive research and my background in biology, I felt that I was able to narrow down the root causes of sugar addiction and the reasons for our increased consumption in the United States. So why should you care? Because ultimately, the person next to you might be just as addicted to sugar as you are, and unknowingly you're falling into a craving that you didn't really know you had, and you always thought was natural, you know? And we live in a very health-conscious time, you know? We live in a time where a lot of people are dieting, and they're kind of watching what they eat, and sugar is a major nutrient. Technically, we need it to live, but the kind of sugar that we are used to is actually fructose. Fructose is an artificial sugar that was made, like man-made, and technically we're supposed to be consuming glucose, which is a natural sugar. And it's because of this that we've basically gotten like a drug addiction to sugar. So, the brief history of sugar. Sugar actually originated in Southeast Asia. It was a sugarcane plant, basically, and that was about 3,500 years ago. And slowly it started becoming more and more popular because it used to be just a delicacy. You know, only certain people were allowed to actually eat sugarcane. And it wasn't really until the transatlantic slave trade, which was 1867 right here, that things actually really started taking off. And that's because they started using slaves to basically grow sugarcane, to harvest it, and to essentially just sell it around the world. And this is where the US kind of comes into play, because we were using sugar as a main source of economic growth. And this increased availability of sugar essentially made us all blind to all the health risks that are with it. So biologically, our brains are dependent on sugar because our brains are the most energy dependent organ in our body, and it constantly needs sugar. Technically, it needs half of your supply of sugar to live. So what does that mean for you? That your brain is literally addicted to sugar, but because of the introduction of fructose, it's essentially affecting your body's reward system. So I don't know if any of you have heard what dopamine is. Dopamine is a pleasure chemical that releases, you know, it releases as a form of so it's released in your body as a kind of reward, and essentially every time that you eat sugar, your body is releasing dopamine. And because of this, you become more and more addicted, and you're chasing kind of like a high because of this sugar. And ultimately, it leads you wanting more and more and more. That's why it's really prevalent, like in kids who don't really have that control to become obese and get all these diseases because of that increased sugar consumption. And so when you eat too much sugar, your body is releasing insulin into your body, and when you have too much insulin, you basically get this problem that's called leptin resistance, which essentially, it essentially kills your appetite, so that you never know when you're full, and you're always wanting more and more and more. and essentially that leads to you being obese, to getting all these health risks, and it also makes you lazier, and it also makes you gain weight. So ultimately, you should be eliminating a lot of sugars from your diet because it causes a lot more risks than pros. So ultimately, the United States really started kicking off right here in the 1940s with the introduction of Coca-Cola, and that was a really big marketing scheme to kind of, basically sell a product that was really bad for you, but just kind of, it was marketed as something that was good for you. And it's really because of this that we've grown up in a culture that's used to consuming large amounts of sugar, to the point where we used to go from 20 grams all the way up to 120, that's a really big gap. And so what can you do if you think that you're addicted to sugar? Well, first, dieting. Dieting is a big part of it. And secondly, you can also hit up a digestive specialist because they specialize in consumption of sugars. So the next time that you taste something with sugar, remember why you're consuming it and how you can change your lifestyle.